Shalom, everybody, and welcome to Yom Ha'Atzma'ut. We are celebrating today. Although it is difficult days to celebrate anything, maybe perhaps the better word is observing, but we are standing here today in awesomeness of our God, and we're declaring Baruch Hashem for the state of Israel, for the Jewish people. Am Yisrael Chai, our people are standing and we are alive, and we will continue to go forward without ceasing as God has called us to be a light to the world. May we continue to be a light into the world in all that we do. Friends, we want you to share this broadcast. I hope you've been blessed by Yom HaZikaron with a Dik Army, and I hope that you will consider supporting the work in Operation Israel today. We'll prepare a special evening for you and a special program for you. But perhaps where I would like to start is by explaining to you the program today. We're going to go and watch a few clips from Israel today. Songs that tell you what it means to be part of Israel. Today you should say proudly and boldly, I am part of Israel. I am standing with Israel. I'm standing with the Jewish people. So we're going to go there, and then Chazzan Gordon is going to be with us to lead us with some of the tefillot for Yom Ha'Atzma'ut. And then from there, we are going to hear a brief word today. I've chosen for this a brief word specifically from Rabbi Cook for us for this evening. And then we're going to go to Eldad Keynan. He's going to give us a survey from 1948 until now, so we know where we're at and how do we get to where we gotten. But I suppose for me, I want to start this service with this prayer called Ana Bekoach. This is a very special prayer that is sang. It was written, this prayer. The Ana Bekoach is quite an ancient prayer, and it's based on the words of the Mishnah that it says in the Brachot, Tractate Brachot, it says, בכניסתי אני מתפלל שלא תארע תקלה על ידיי, ביציאה אני נותן הודיה על חלקי. When I come in, I pray that Satan will not harm me. And when I go out, I pray again. Typically, the Ana Bekoach is sang in the morning, but I feel it's morning somewhere. Sometimes it's sunrise in Israel, Or Chadash al Tzion, a new day and a new light to come. Ana Bekoach, please in strength. Prayer for protection. Protect the IDF, protect our soldiers, protect our government, protect all who love Israel, and protect those who stand today with the Jewish people. Ana Bekoach, גדולת ימינך תתיר צרורה, קבל רינת עמך, ספגנו, טהרנו נורא, נגיבור דורש ייחודך כבבת שומרם, ברכם, טהרם, רחמי צדקתך, תמיד גומלם, חסין קדוש ברוב טובך, נאל עדתך, יחיד גאה לעמך פנה, זוכר קדושתך, שבתנו קבל, הושמע צעקתנו, יודע תעלומות. And then we say, whispering, ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו, לעולם ועד. Bekoach, from the eternal one, we are waiting. Am Yisrael Chai, let's hit the like and the share, and let's go for a very special Ana Bekoach. Shalom, everybody.
תתיר צרורה, קבל רינה גומלה חסיל קדוש
המשפחה, החברים, אולי לצאת לבילויים, שיחות עמוקות, שיחות של הנפש בלילה, להתמודד עם שינויים, ההרגלים הישנים, הנשמה במלחמה עם הקרמה.
עוד יבואו ימים טובים, אני מבטיח, עוד יבואו ימים טובים. גם בשעות החשוכות של הלילה תמיד יהיה כוכב קטן שיעיר לך את עצמך, את הדרך הביתה. תמיד זה הכי חשוך לפני הזריחה, מיליון רכבות דוהרות עד אוסטרליה, מחפש רחוק את מה שנמצא לך מתחת לאף, כל מכשול זה מדליה, קם ונופל אבל בדרך שלך.
להתמודד עם הפחדים, לקפוץ למים עמוקים, לשחות עד הסוף, להגיע לחוף עד הלילה,
להאזין גם לשירים, כי זמרים הם הרופאים הכי טובים שיש למדע להציע.
עוד יבואו ימים טובים, אני מבטיח, עוד יבואו ימים טובים. עד השעות החשוכות של הלילה תמיד יהיה כוכב קטן שיעיר לך את עצמך, את הדרך הביתה. תמיד זה הכי חשוך לפני הזריחה, מיליון רכבות דוהרות עד אוסטרליה, מחפש רחוק את מה שנמצא לך מתחת לאף, כל מכשול זה מדליה, קם ונופל אבל בדרך שלך. בדרך שלך, בדרך שלך. גם בשעות החשוכות של הלילה תמיד יהיה כוכב קטן שיעיר לך את עצמך, את הדרך הביתה. תמיד זה הכי חשוך לפני הסליחה.
רוחות הצפון נושבות עד אליך, בלבך תמיד תהיה מנגינה אחת. תשמע את הקול שיעיר את עיניך, עם ישראל כולו עומד לצדך.
שתזרח השמש כל יום במרום, יברכו אנשים זה זה לשלום, בחיוך מן הלב יקבלו את פנינו, ובזאת דיינו דיינו,
ובזאת דיינו ודי די דיינו, ובזאת דיינו דיינו, ובזאת דיינו ודי די דיינו, ובזאת דיינו דיינו.
שיהיה לנו ים לעולמי עולמים, שנצא לטייל בשדות אדומים ופרחים ביישנים יקשטו את ערינו, ובזאת דיינו דיינו, ובזאת דיינו ודי די דיינו, ובזאת דיינו דיינו, ובזאת דיינו ודי די דיינו, ובזאת דיינו דיינו,
די דיינו, די דיינו, די דיינו, דיינו דיינו, די דיינו, די דיינו, די דיינו, דיינו דיינו.
שנישא תפילתנו לשלום הצבא, לוחמים גיבורים במלחמת חובה, ששומרים על גבולות המדינה מאויבינו, בזאת דיינו דיינו.
חודשים נלחמים בחום בקרה, להחזיר תושבים לבתיהם במהרה, ונזכור שהכוח נמצא ברוחנו, ובזאת
דיינו דיינו,
ובזאת דיינו, ובזאת דיינו, ובזאת דיינו 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 די, ובזאת דיינו, ובזאת דיינו 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 די 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 דיינו,
ובזאת דיינו ודי די דיינו, ובזאת דיינו דיינו, ובזאת דיינו ודי די דיינו, ובזאת דיינו דיינו,
דיינו.
Shalom, everybody, and thank you for being here for Yom Ha'Atzma'ut, the Israeli Independence Day. Israel is celebrating another year, and we are excited to know that the God of Israel reigns over our people. The essence of being Jewish is this word, chaim, life. Yeshua says, I come to give you life in greater abundance. And today, more than any other days, I remember the word of Jeremiah. He says, I come to give you an hopeful future. May there be a hopeful future upon all of Israel, all of the Jewish people, and all of those who dwell in the land in safety. And may Mashiach come soon to deliver us from all our adversary. It is time, friends, to declare it with Bashana Haba.
בשנה הבאה נשב על מדפסת ונספור ציפורים נודדות, ילדים בחושה ישחקו קובצת בין הבית לבין השדות. תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. בשנה הבאה נשב על מרפסת ונספור ציפורים נולדות. ילדים בחושה ישחקו טופסת בין הבית לבין השדות. תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה. תראה כמה טוב יהיה בשנה הבאה.
Today, friends, we are celebrating Israel Independence Day. I want to explain to you something about this. I want to share with you a personal story about Independence Day. My grandfather, Yitzchak Shapira, was a very dear and close friend of David Ben Gurion. And he always told me this story of how they have heard about the establishment of the country. He told me that in the Euphrates, they went up to the attic. It wasn't illegal to have a radio. They have the giant radio, and there was something that was called the Voice of Zion. And in this day, it was roughly 140 degrees Fahrenheit in the attic. They put a blanket on their head, put the radio to their ears, and they have heard the declaration. And it was a code word for everybody to come home, to return home. The nation has been born in 1 second and in 1 moment. And today we are witnesses to the miracle of our people, standing and truly being eternal people. Hitler was not able to exterminate us, neither is Stalin. We are standing today supernaturally. And maybe, just maybe, all the Jews hear again the words, come back home, return home. Let's watch this declaration, this prophetic declaration that took place in Tel Aviv. May we have many more declarations to the world about who we are in the days ahead. Check it out.
ארץ תחול עיניו, והשמש לה כדבש וחלב. ארץ בה נולדנו, ארץ בה נחיה, ונשב בה יהיה מה שיהיה. ארץ שנאהב, היא לנו אם ואב, ארץ של העם, ארץ לעולם.
אקריא לפניכם את מגילת היסוד של מדינת ישראל, אשר אושרה בקריאה ראשונה על ידי מועצת העם. בארץ ישראל קם העם היהודי, בה עוצבה דמותו הרוחנית, הדתית והמדינית, בה חי חיי קוממיות ממלכתית, בה יצר נכסי תרבות לאומיים וכלל אנושיים, והוריש לעולם כולו את ספר הספרים הנצחי. לאחר שהוגלה העם מארצו בכוח הזרוע, שמר לה אמונים בכל ארצות פזוריו, ולא חדל מתפילה ומתקווה לשוב לארצו ולחדש בתוכה את חירותו המדינית. מתוך קשר היסטורי ומסורתי זה חתרו היהודים בכל דור לשוב ולהיאחז במולדתם העתיקה, ובדורות האחרונים שבו לארצם בהמונים, וחלוצים, מעפילים ומגינים הפריחו נשמות, החיו שפתם העברית, בנו כפרים וערים, והקימו יישוב גדל והולך, השליט על משקו ותרבותו, שוחר שלום ומגן על עצמו, מביא ברכת הקדמה לכל תושבי הארץ ונושא נפשו לעצמאות ממלכתית. בשנת תרנ"ז 1897 נתכנס הקונגרס הציוני לכל קריאתו של הוגה חזון המדינה היהודית תיאודור הרצוג, והכריז על זכות העם היהודי לתקומה לאומית בארצו. זכות זו הוכרה בהצהרת בלפור מיום ב' בנובמבר 1917 ויושרה במנדט מטעם חבר הלאומים, אשר נתן במיוחד תוקף בינלאומי לקשר ההיסטורי שבין העם היהודי לבין ארץ ישראל, ולזכות העם היהודי להקים מחדש את ביתו הלאומי. השואה שנתחוללה על עם ישראל בזמן האחרון, בה הוכרעו לטבח מיליונים יהודים באירופה, הוכיחה מחדש בעליל את ההכרח בפתרון בעיית העם היהודי מחוסר המולדת והעצמאות על ידי חידוש המדינה היהודית בארץ ישראל, אשר תפתח לרווחה את שערי המולדת לכל יהודי ותעניק לעם היהודי מעמד של אומה שוות זכויות בתוך משפחת העמים. שארית הפליטה שניצלה מהטבח הנאצי היום באירופה ויהודי ארצות אחרות לא חדלו להפיל לארץ ישראל על אף כל קושי ומניעה וסכנה, ולא פסקו לתבוע את זכותם לחיי כבוד, חירות ועמל ישרים במולדת עמם. במלחמת העולם השנייה תרם היישוב העברי בארץ את מלוא חלקו למאבק האומות השוחרות חירות ושלום נגד כוחות הרשע הנאצי, ובדם חייליו ובמאמצו המלחמתי קנה לו את הזכות להימנות עם העמים מייסדי ברית האומות המיוחדות. ב-29 בנובמבר 1947 קיבלה עצרת האומות המיוחדות החלטה המחייבת הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל. העצרת קבעה מאת תושבי ארץ ישראל לאחוז בעצמם בכל הצעדים הנדרשים מצידם הם לביצוע ההחלטה. הכרה זו של האומות המאוחדות בזכות העם היהודי להקים את מדינתו אינה ניתנת להפקעה. זוהי זכותו הטבעית של העם היהודי להיות ככל עם ועם עומד ברשות עצמו במדינתו הריבונית. לפיכך נתכנסנו אנו חברי מועצת העם, נציגי היישוב העברי והתנועה הציונית, ביום סיום המנדט הבריטי על ארץ ישראל, ובתוקף זכותנו הטבעית וההיסטורית ועל יסוד החלטת עצרת האומות המאוחדות אנו מכריזים בזאת על הקמת מדינה יהודית בארץ ישראל, היא מדינת ישראל. אנו קובעים שהחל מרגע סיום המנדט הלילה אור ליום שבת ואייר תש"ח 15 במאי 1948 ועד להקמת השלטונות הנבחרים והסדירים של המדינה בהתאם לחוקה שתיקבע על ידי האספה המכוננת הנבחרת לא יאוחר מ-1 באוקטובר 1948. תפעל מועצת העם כמועצת מדינה זמנית ומוסד הביצוע שלה מנהלת העם יהווה את הממשלה הזמנית של המדינה היהודית אשר תיקרא בשם ישראל. מדינת ישראל תהא פתוחה לעלייה יהודית ולקיבוץ גלויות. תשקוד על פיתוח הארץ לטובת כל תושביה. תהא מושתתת על יסודות החירות, הצדק והשלום לאור חזונם של נביאי ישראל. תקיים שוויון זכויות חברתי ומדיני גמור לכל אזרחיה בלי הבדל דת וגזע ומין. תבטיח חופש דת, מצפון, חינוך, תרבות ולשון. תשמור על המקומות הקדושים של כל הדתות ותהיה נאמנה לעקרונותיה של מגילת האומות המאוחדות. מדינת ישראל תהא מוכנה לשתף פעולה עם המוסדות והנציגים של האומות המאוחדות בהגשמת החלטת העצרת ביום 29 בנובמבר 1927 ותפעל להקמת האחדות הכלכלית של ארץ ישראל בשלמותה. אנו קוראים לאומות המאוחדות לתת יד לעם היהודי בבניין מדינתו ולקבל את מדינת ישראל לתוך משפחת העמים. אנו קוראים גם בתוך התקפת הדמים הנערכת עלינו זה חדשים לבני העם הערבי תושבי מדינת ישראל לשמור על השלום וליטול חלקם בבניין המדינה על יסוד אזרחות מלאה ושווה ועל יסוד נציגות מתאימה בכל מוסדותיה הזמניים והקבועים. אנו מושיטים יד שלום ושכנות טובה לכל המדינות השכנות וימיהן וקוראים להם לשיתוף פעולה ועזרה הדדית עם העם היהודי העצמאי בארצו. מדינת ישראל מוכנה לתרום חלקה במאמץ משותף לקדמת המזרח התיכון כולו. אנו קוראים אל העם היהודי בכל התפוצות להתלכד סביב היישוב בעלייה ובבניין ולעמוד לימינו במערכה הגדולה על הגשמת שאיפת הדורות לגאולת ישראל. מתוך ביטחון בצור ישראל, הננו חותמים בחתימת ידינו לעדות על הכרזה זו במושב מועצת המדינה הזמנית על אדמת המולדת בעיר תל אביב, היום הזה, ערב שבת, אייר תש"ח, 14 במאי 1948. לקבל את מגילת היסוד למדינת היהודים בעמידה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהחיינו והתגדלנו והגענו לזמן הזה.
From Israel Declaration of Independence. The state of Israel will foster the development of the country for the benefit of all its inhabitants. It will be based on freedom, justice, and peace, as envisaged by the prophets of Israel. It will ensure complete equality of social, political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. It will guarantee freedom of religion, conscience, language, education, and culture. It will safeguard the holy places of all religion, and it will be faithful to the principle of the Charter of the United Nations. Amen. In Eretz Israel, here their spiritual, religious, and political identity was shaped. Here they first attained to statehood, created cultural values of national and universal significance, and gave to the world the eternal book of books.
We extend our hand to all neighboring states and their peoples in an offer of peace and good neighborliness, and appeal to them to establish bonds of cooperation and mutual help with the sovereign Jewish people settled in its own land. The state of Israel is prepared to do its share in a common effort for the advancement of the entire Middle East. We appeal to the Jewish people throughout the diaspora to rally around the Jews of Eretz Israel in the tasks of immigration and upbuilding, and to stand by them in their great struggle for the realization of the age-old dream, the redemption of Israel. In the city of Tel Aviv, on this Shabbat Eve, the 5th day of Iyar, 5708, May 14th, 1948.
אוויר הרים צלול כיין וריח חורנים נישא ברוח הארבעים עם כל פעמונים ובתרדמת אליו האבן שבויה בחלומה העיר אשר בדד יושבת ובליבה חומה ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור הלא לכל שיריי אני כינור ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור הלא לכל שיריי אני כינור. You're olive trees that stand in silence upon the hills of time. I hear the voices of the city as dawn begins to climb. The water well for those who thirsted, the ancient market square, your golden sun that lights the future for all men everywhere. Yerushalayim shel zahav v'shel nechoshet v'shel or halol lechol shirayich ani kinor. Yerushalayim shel zahav v'shel nechoshet v'shel or halol lechol shirayich ani kinor. How many songs, how many stories those stony hills recall. Around her heart the city carries a proud and ancient wall. My simple voice cannot acclaim you, too weak the words I choose. Jerusalem, if I forget you, my right hand's wisdom lose. Yerushalayim shel zahav v'shel nechoshet v'shel or halol lechol shirayich ani kinor. Yerushalayim shel zahav v'shel nechoshet v'shel or halol lechol shirayich ani
Tfilat Iskor Am Israel, a prayer of remember. We remember today as we taking upon ourselves our independence. We remember those who laying their life today, will lay their life tomorrow, and those who will lay their life in the past. I will first paraphrase this prayer in English for your benefit. We will remember. Am Israel will remember his sons and his daughters, the faithful ones, the brave ones, the soldiers of the IDF, all the soldiers before the IDF was even established, all of the ones who are fighting and standing for our independence, all the community of intelligence, of security, police officer, and those who lay their life for this day, the day of independence. And today we remember all of those who have been murdered inside and outside the land of Israel by murderers and terrorist organizations. May today we remember Israel, and may the seed of Israel will be blessed as we are looking at the zeal and the light of the might and the holiness and the mesirut nefesh of those who lay their life in these terrible, terrible days. May they will be today, remember, with tiara of victories as they seal in the heart of all of Israel from this generation to every other generation. יזכור עם ישראל את בניו ובנותיו, הנאמנים והאמיצים, חיילי צבא ההגנה לישראל, וכל לוחמי המחתרות וחטיבות הלוחמים במערכות העם, וכל אנשי קהילת המודיעין והביטחון, ואנשי המשטרה, אשר חירפו נפשם במלחמה על תקומת ישראל, וכל אלה שנרצחו בארץ ומחוצה לה בידי מרצחים מארגוני הטרור. יזכור ישראל ויתברך בזרעו ויאבל על זיו העלומים וחמדת הגבורה וקדושת הרצון ומסירות הנפש אשר נספו במערכה הכבדה. יהיו חללי מערכות ישראל עטורי הניצחון, חתומים בלב ישראל לדור ודור. And we are remember today in this Independence Day, the Kedoshim. This is a prayer for the holy ones, a very important prayer to say today, especially as we celebrate. We still, even today, remember those who are in the captivity. They are the holy one today, the captive. And of course we say today, Adonai Matir Asurim, Lord, set the captive free. Avinu שבשמיים, אל אלוהי הרוחות לכל בשר. זכור נא את הנשמות הזכות והטהורות של בנינו ובנותינו, אשר הערו את נפשם למות מות גיבורים. בהיחלצם לעזרת העם והארץ, מנשרים כלו ומהאריות גברו במלחמתם, למען שחרור עמם ומולדתם. בעלותם על מזבח תקומת ישראל בארץ קודשו, הפיכו רוח עז גבורה בכל בית ישראל, בארץ ובתפוצות, והתעורר לקראת גאלתו ופדות נפשו, יזכרם אלוהינו, לטובה עם רבבות אלפי קדושי ישראל וגיבוריו מימי עולם. בצחור החיים יצרר את נשמותם, בגן עדן תהיה מנוחתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבם, ויעבדו לגורלם לקץ הימים. And together we say Amen.
על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המר והמתוק, על ביתנו התינוקת, שמור אלי הטוב. על האש המבוערת, על המים הזכים, על האיש השב הביתה מן המרחקים. על כל אלה, על כל אלה, שמור נא לי אלי הטוב. על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המר והמתוק, על נתן הכהן התרועה, אל תשכח את התקווה. השיבני בשובע אל הארץ הטובה. על הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המר והמתוק, על ביתנו התינוקת, שמור אלי הטוב. על האש המבוערת, על המים הזכים, על האיש השב הביתה מן המרחקים. על כל אלה, על כל אלה, הדבש ועל העוקץ, על המר והמטור, על נתת נטוע, אל תשכח את התקווה, השיבני ואשובה אל הארץ הטובה. מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה. קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע הזהירים, לנשמע יקירנו, שהלכו לעולמים ברחמים, יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, תזרור החיים את נשמתם, אדוני נחלתם, ינוחו בשלום, בשלום על משכבם, ונאמר פנימה נפש יהודי הומייה, ולפתי מזרח קדימה, עין לציון סופיה. שנות אלפיים להיות הנפשי בארצנו
Shalom, everybody. My name is Rabbi Dr. Shapira, and I'm the founder of Ahavat Ammi International. My country, the country of Israel, has been brutally attacked, where hundreds upon hundreds of innocent civilians, children, little babies, Holocaust survivors, and complete families have been murdered. Because of that, Ahavat Ammi International have been launching now a brand new fund. The proceeds, 100%, will go to Israel. Operation Israel. As you're watching the events unfold in Israel, I'm asking you today to give a hand, help us to help those in great needs. Ahavat Ammi International and Operation Israel have already identified several significant funds, those who are in great needs to fight this war, both physically and spiritually, who need our support. Please give us this great support that is needed right now for the state of Israel and for the Jewish people. Am Yisrael Chai. God bless you and Shalom. Shalom everybody, and thank you for joining us here for Yom Ha'Atzma'ut. My name is Rabbi Dr. Shapira. Today we are observing Israel Independence Day, and I sincerely hope that as you go forward, you think about the words that is given us by Rabbi Kook, the first Ashkenazi chief rabbi of Israel. I was thinking about this a lot, actually, in those days, for you and with you, and I want you to think about what Rabbi Kook wrote in the context of the fall of Edom, this spiritual war. I sincerely hope everybody get to read my new book, The Fall of Edom, in this time and in this season. Listen to what he said. When there is a great war in the world, the power of Mashiach is aroused. The time of the song of the Zamir, the turtle dove, has arrived. The Zamir of the tyrant, the wicked, perish from the world, and the world is invigorated, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land. Song of Songs. The individual who are killed unjustly in the revolution of the flood of the war participate in this concept. The death of the righteous bring atonement. The individual who are killed unjustly in the revolution of the flood of the war participate in the concept, the death of the righteous atone. Are you hearing that? The death of the righteous atone. The tzaddikim who are fighting right now in Gaza and giving their life in Lebanon and in Syria and in the boat, they are carrying the spirit of the Mashiach. Mashiach is already operating inside the states of Israel. Baruch Hashem. They rise above in the root of life, and the essence of their life bring a general quality of good and blessing to the overall structure of the world in all the values and the senses. Afterwards, at the cessation of the war, the world is renewed in a new spirit, and in the feet of Mashiach are revealed even more. According to the extent of the war, in quantity and quality, so increasing the increase of expectation expectation of the feet of Mashiach through it. The present world war is possessed of an awesome, great, and deep expectation attached to the changes of time and the visible sign of the end in the settlement of the land of Israel. Listen to this. This is amazing. With great intellect, powerful courage, and piercing logic, with true longing and clear thought, we must receive the lofty content of the light of the Lord that is revealed wondrously in the events of this war especially. What an amazing statement for us. With the quantity of the quality of what we do, with the breadth of the war, it means that the expectation of the Mashiach is becoming bigger and bigger. He wrote this during World War. Brothers and sisters, we are now in a great qualitative and quantitative war. That means that Mashiach is at the door. And the war that happened right now, not that we should be rejoicing in that sense, but we should say, rejoice today. The name of our God is about to be revealed to the world. Israel is established in the nation. All the ingredient is in place for us to see the coming of the Mashiach. But we must win the war. Win the war today that will usher the finishing touches of this war by King Mashiach today. The time of the turtle dove has come. Et azamir yagia. Kol nishma ba'aretz, the voice is heard in the land, and the individual who are fighting in this war are fighting today in the war of Mashiach. So what about us today in Yom Ha'Atzma'ut? How do we fight the war? I remember years ago, I was in one of the largest Chabad houses in the world, and I started to talk and have a talk with a devout Schneerson follower about him being Mashiach. And so I says, wait a second, Schneerson never served in the idea of how can he fulfill what Maimonides tell us, that Mashiach have to fight the war of Hashem. And he said, oh, you do fight. You fight the war of God first and foremost with your mouth, with your tefillot, with what's coming out of you. This is the very first type of war that we have to overtake upon ourselves and overcome. Today, we are challenging all of you to fight the war of God, fight the war of Israel in the Facebook pages, in the Instagram pages, in the pages of YouTube, and what you put on your social media on your Instagram. You can fight the war of Hashem, and you should fight the war of Hashem today, because this war, that even if you're willing to sacrifice yourself to, bring atonement to all of Israel and to you too. So today I have a challenge for all of us. The Rabbi Cook called this chapter the war. And he says the wars, that the war become the koach of the Mashiach. He's awakened. Awake him today. Awake his voice. Awake the Mashiach by you willing to go to battle. Let's go to war so that we have the Prince of Peace among us. God bless you, everybody. Let's go to Eldad Keynan for a little bit of history lesson. Let us be awakened today. Shalom, everybody.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eldad Keynan. I think I'm privileged to be a Jew and to be born in Israel and live here and take part in at least 2 wars in this wonderful state. And I will start with the War of Independence or the War of the Independence of the State of Israel? Well, it began the day after the resolution of the United Nations General Assembly on November 29, 1947. It ended with the four post-war armistice agreements signed by representatives of Israeli government in 1949 with Egypt, Lebanon, the Kingdom of Jordan, and Syria. The War of Independence, Yom Ha'Atzma'ut in Hebrew, lasted about a year and a half and was, to a large extent, the most difficult war in Israel's war. During the War of Independence, some 6,000 Jews were killed in the land of Israel, among them about 4,500 fighters and 1,500 civilians. However, Arab terrorists in the land of Israel attacked the Jews ever since Jews started to make Aliyah toward the end of the 19th century. It also should be noted that the UN resolution divided the entire land. We talk about the resolution mentioned above in 1947. It divided the entire land. This division did not favor the Jews, to say the least. Still, the Jews accepted the plan while the Arabs rejected it. At the end of the Independence War, the area liberated by young Israel was much larger than the area it received from the UN plan of 1947. Israel always, it must be remembered and noted, Israel always reached out its hand for peace with its neighbors. Initially, they all refused. The problem of refugees, indeed many were expelled, but many more Arabs followed their leaders who urged them to flee from the land. This movement was encouraged by the Arab states so as to produce the refugee problem, the so-called Palestinian problem. Again, the Palestinian problem was not created by miracle. People did it. The next war is the Sinai operation, or as we call it in Hebrew, Milchemet Kadesh. It's 1956 to 1957, October 29. The days of fighting were from October 29 to November 5, 1956. Not long after the Independence War ended, Arab terrorists began to harass the young Jewish state. And this story is going to repeat and repeat and repeat. The terrorist bases were mainly in Jordan and Gaza, if this reminds you of something. The horrible massacres were carried out by Arab terrorists. In Arabic, they called themselves Fidayun. The danger was great. Villages were in danger of siege. Something had to be done. Moreover, the Egyptian ruler Nasser announced the nationalization of the Suez Canal on July 26, 1956. Half of the canal company shares were in France's hands, and the other half in Great Britain's hands. For Israel, the problem was not shares, but Egypt blocked the Suez Canal and the marine route to Eilat, just what the Houthis do today. From Israeli shipping and goods transport to Israel. Other causes for that war: the arms deal between Egypt and Czechoslovakia, end of September 1955, which threatened to strengthen the Egyptian army with huge quantities of Russian weapons. The establishment of a joint Arab command of Egypt, Jordan, and Syria, October 24, 1956. The feeling that another war, the second round, is inevitable and therefore it is better to attack first. And again, there was the cooperation with Great Britain and France. The Director General of the Ministry of Defense, Shimon Peres, later to be the president, at that time developed close ties with the French security establishment and opened up to Israel a vital source for the purchase of military equipment and weapons. The USA and the USSR presented an ultimatum and demanded the withdrawal of all fighting forces from the occupied zone in Egypt, meaning for Israel it's the Sinai. Following this, Ben-Gurion announced on November 7, 1956, the evacuation of the IDF from Sinai and Gaza. By March 1957, Israel had withdrawn from all the territories it had occupied. Again, if this reminds you of something, you are correct. Israel had some conditions for this withdrawal. Ben-Gurion wanted to leave the Gaza Strip and coast of the Gulf of Eilat in Israel's hands. After it was made clear that such agreement could not be reached, it was agreed that the UN force and not the Egyptian army would occupy the Gaza Strip. Ben-Gurion announced that any closure of the Strait of Tiran would be a pretext for another war. This issue was resolved after Israel received the promise of the powers, led by the US, for free passage through the Strait of Tiran. The results of Operation Kadesh. The entire Sinai Peninsula was occupied, and the IDF proved its strength as the protective arm of the State of Israel. Israel enjoyed 10 years of peace on its southern border, after this area remained empty of units. Egyptian military The infiltration from Gaza stopped, and the UN force was stationed in Sinai and Gaza. The maritime blockade on Israel was lifted. The opening of the Straits of Tiran enabled trade relations with Asia and Africa. Israel withdrew from all occupied territories by March 1957, following American-Russian pressure. In return, Israel accepted international guarantees for freedom of navigation in the Gulf of Eilat. 171 IDF soldiers were killed and hundreds wounded. Egypt lost 3,000 dead, about 5,000 Egyptian soldiers were returned and they were POWs. The effect of the war, the lightening of the relation between US and Israel. The US saw Israel as a factor that would stop the spread of communism. Therefore, it supported Israel's demands for peace and security and strengthened it from a security point of view. Tightening the alliance with France, the cooperation between France and Israel in the war strengthened France's support for Israel. France supported Israel at the UN and helped build the reactor in Dimona. Israel's relations with the Arab countries worsened. Arab countries presented Israel as an imperialist country cooperating with the Western imperialism. Israel's deterrence capacity has increased. This capacity has enabled 10 years of peace along Israel borders. The IDF has demonstrated a high military capability in the air, at the sea, and on land, with the reserve system as a military force. But this is Israel. Next war is the Six-Day War, from June 5, 1967 to June 10, 1967. And I call it the miracle. The factors that led to the Six-Day War. One was the entry of Egyptian army into Sinai. It was in around Yom Ha'Atzma'ut of 1967, a day or 2 days later. The head of Egypt, Nasser, demand for the evacuation of the UN from Sinai and the Gaza Strip. He closed the Straits of Tiran. There were the ongoing escalation with Syria. It is named the War on Water. And there was the escalation of the PLO terrorist activity supported by the Arab states. Arab Summit Conference in 1964, there were Egyptian ruler Nasser convinced the participants that action should be taken against Israel, but not with military action. Therefore, it was decided at the conference to divert the Jordan sources and prevent the water from entering Israel's territory. Syria has begun preparatory work for a tilting plant. Israel could not put up with the tilting works and saw them as an act of war against it. From the beginning of 1965 to the middle of 1966, incidents called the water war took place on the Syrian-Israeli border. During these incidents, IDF tanks and planes attacked the Syrian tractors until the work on the Syrian side was stopped. And my very short contribution, I was a kid that time, but I witnessed the northern part of that war as a kid. I saw it because I used to live on a high place on the western side of the Hula Valley, and the war was going on lower on the eastern side of the Hula Valley, so kids could see it. I must say it was a great experience. It was not real. For us, it was like a movie. On May 20, 1966, the Syrian Minister of Defense, Hafez al-Assad, the president-to-be and the father of the current president of Syria, announced that he was headed for a war to liberate Palestine and expel the invaders from it. This is what all the Arabs still want until today, but the Arabs who say it clearly and openly is the Hamas. On July 14, Israeli Air Force planes penetrated to a depth of 12 kilometers, about 7 miles, east of the border and attacked the heavy equipment used by the Syrian to divert the Jordan sources. In mid-September, Syria officially announced that its army would assist Fatah, which is the PLO, with training and funding. In October 1966, with the support of the Soviet Union, the leaders of Syria officially called for a mobilization of troops for the army and people's war against Israel. Israel realized even then that the Syrian actions could degenerate into war. The defense agreement signed between Syria and Egypt on November 4, 1966, stated among other things that the two countries consider any act of armed aggression against one of them to be aggression against both. About half a year after the agreement, on May 14, 1967, Israel's Independence Day, the Egyptian army, about 100,000 soldiers and 1,000 tanks, entered Sinai under the pretext of the IDF, the IDF was concentrating forces in the north against Syria. I swear to God, I lived in the north. It's not true. according to proofs that the Soviet Union provided to Egypt. The Israelis did not expect Nasser's invasion of Sinai because he always claimed that he would go to war with Israel only when all the preparations are completed and favorable international conditions were created for an attack. Nasser knew that the Russians were not accurate when they told him that Israel intended to attack Syria, just as I said. He could ask me. On June 4, the Israeli government decided to start a war. The causes. The steps Nasser took in the waiting period that preceded the war, signing defense agreement with Syria and the entry of Egyptian army to Sinai. Nasser did not estimate that his show of force would escalate into all-out war. Well, we are not obliged to what he thinks. Nasser's demand for the evacuation of the UN force was another factor. He was not satisfied with the ostentatious entry into Sinai, and on May 16 he demanded a partial evacuation of the UN emergency force. 2 days later, he demanded from the U.S. Secretary General that the UN evacuate Sinai completely. The UN quickly evacuated because he had no other choice. On May 20, Egyptian paratroops captured the UN positions in Sharm el-Sheikh, it's Tiran Straits. Well, once more, the Straits of Tiran were closed. Once more. It means Arab fingers on Israel's neck. Nasser announced the closure of the Straits of Tiran and Sanfir, it's the entrance to the Gulf of Eilat, and said, I remember it from the radio, if the Jews threaten war, we say to them, Ahlan wa sahlan, we are ready for war. Ahlan and sahlan in Arabic means welcome. Well, effects and results of the Six-Day War. In October 1967, the Israeli government called for a direct negotiation between Israel and the Arab countries with the aim of reaching permanent peace, a call that received no response. In November 1967, the Security Council of the UN adopted resolution number 242, which was acceptable to the powers and most of the countries in the Middle East, including Israel. The resolution emphasized the need for a just peace in which every country in the region could live in security and contained a call for Israel to withdraw from occupied territories, to abolish the state of war and to respect the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and political independence of all countries in the region. You get it? The UN wants all this from Israel, not from the Arab countries. The decision emphasized the need to guarantee the freedom of navigation in the international waterways. The decision referred to the withdrawal of Israel from the territories, not the territories. The Arabs interpreted the decision as a general withdrawal to the borders of 1967. Nasser declared, everything taken from us by force cannot be returned except by force. I remember this. The State of Israel talked about this declaration. Relations between Israel and the communist world were cut off, and not long after the war, French started the weapon embargo on Israel. The effects of the war on Israel were first much more territories and a booming economy. But there was also euphoria. The war evoked not only a feeling of joy, but a feeling of pride in the people that sometimes even bordered arrogance. I can say it's true. The entire nation, chief of the defense minister Moshe Dayan and chief of staff Yitzhak Rabin. The nation believed that the Arabs had learned a final lesson, that the end of the era of wars was an unequivocal Israeli victory. The prime ministers of Israel believed that the Arabs would now agree to make peace with Israel at any cost. How wrong they were, we all know. In Six-Day War, Israel lost 779 soldiers, 2,593 wounded, and 15 POWs. Syria and Egypt lost between 12,000 and 21,500 soldiers and 45,000 wounded and 6,000 prisoners of war. By the way, the number of dead between 12,000 and 21,500, the gap is wide enough, but the problem is that it was very hard to count the bodies of mainly Egyptian soldiers. Many of them were just cast in the sand, and 6 years later I joined the Israeli army, the IDF, and I was stationed in Sinai, and in many cases when we were just moving around in the dunes and on the hills, we found bodies. So nobody counted them before we found them, and not after. But this war was the first step to the 73 war, which I call the disaster. But before we touch this war, a few words about the 6 years between this and the Six-Day War. After the Six-Day War, the PLO activity increased significantly. At the same time, Egypt started the attrition war on the Suez Canal, which ended in an agreement in August 70. However, the war against terror never ended, and you know that. Since Christmas 1968, beginning on that night, the PLO turned Kiryat Shmona, my hometown by the way, it's in the eastern Upper Galilee, to its primary target while not neglecting other targets. Munich Olympics 1972, for instance. But it was not the only one. Between 1967 and 1970, the IDF had to fight the PLO terrorists from Jordan. All these even before the next war of 73. In the war of attrition in Sinai alone, we lost around 1,000 men and thousands of wounded. The numbers on the other front are smaller. I mean the Syrian front of terror and the Jordanian front of terror. If I may, my personal contribution is that I was there as a regular IDF serviceman in 73. The IDF was on alert, at least from Thursday, 2 days before it started. Thursday evening, 2 days before the attack. Still, no one, except for a few intelligence low-ranking personnel, thought it was that severe, even after the first 24 hours of fighting. The Arabs deeply surprised us. We needed a day to travel from our base to the small airport in Tel Aviv. Then we flew to Sinai by night. I don't think I understood the scale of disaster during the war. Only after the ceasefire, the numbers and the missing brothers in arms helped me understand the scale of this disaster. The main moves of the Yom Kippur War. The Egyptian-Syrian attack started on October 6, 2 o'clock afternoon, 2 o'clock p.m. After a heavy bombardment, the Egyptians crossed the Suez Canal in the first hours of the Yom Kippur War using 12 bridges. They bypassed the strongholds. They advanced to a distance of about 8 kilometers from the canal. Egypt has a great advantage in tanks and infantry. The strongholds are besieged, and the attempts to rescue their fighters have failed. It's a very heavy price. They fell into the hands of the Egyptians, except the northernmost bastion on the canal. The Syrians invaded the Golan Heights, occupied most of its territory, and threatened to reach the Kinneret, the Sea of the Galilee. They were halted in a heavy battle in the north of the plateau, near Quneitra, in the Emek HaBacha, the Valley of Tears. The Hermon outpost fell to the Syrians on the first day of Yom Kippur War in an attack by troops dropped from helicopters. The failure of the counterattack on the canal front. It was I just remember this name. October 8, the Israeli counterattack failed. The two armored divisions of the IDF, Division 162, under Major General Abraham Adan, and Division 143 under command of Major General Eric Sharon, tried to break into the trench, but the attack failed. ATGM, anti-tank guided missile Sagar, the Egyptian missile, hit many tanks. I saw few of these incidents. It's horrible. The effort in the north, concentration of effort in the north due to the threat to northern Israel. The IDF concentrated its effort against the Syrians in the Golan Heights. It attacked with 3 armored divisions and concentrated the Air Force for operations in the Golan Heights. We lost many jets over the Golan Heights. On October 8 to 11, the Syrians were pushed back to the border, and the IDF moved to attack into Syria and took over territories up to 40 kilometers, 25 miles, from Damascus. The Hermon outpost was recaptured in a tough battle. I remember that too. Not because I was there, I was not, but people talked about it. Iraqi and Jordanian dispatch forces tried to help the Syrians in a counterattack but failed. The Air Force attacked the strategic targets all over Syria, including the house of the staff of the Syrian army in mid-Damascus. On October 14, an Egyptian attack along the entire front failed. From then on, the initiative, and I remember this, I was there. From then on, the initiative within the framework of the Yom Kippur War passed into the hands of the IDF. On October 14-15, the IDF succeeded in crossing the canal to the west in the seam between the two Egyptian armies in the Derbaswar area. That night, the 14 to 15, I lost some friends. Extremely difficult battles were fought to open the bridgehead, and move the Egyptian and remove the Egyptian bridges. Among the battles, well, this one, the Chinese Farm Battle, between Israeli paratroopers and Egyptian forces to clear the road name, the code name of that road was Tirtu. This battle intended for the transfer, this road was intended for the transfer of the Silinder's Bridge. It's an Israeli invention, which worked well, not as good as expected. The IDF advanced from the west of the canal and encircled the Third Army, which was arrayed on the east bank of the Suez. I was part of this siege. The IDF stopped 101 kilometers from Cairo. The success of the canal war battles symbolizes the turning point in the war. From an extremely difficult opening situation, the IDF succeeded in moving to an attack in the western part of the canal and surrounding the entire Egyptian Third Army. The ceasefire, I remember it. On October 22, the UN Security Council announced ceasefire and the end of the Yom Kippur War. The fighting in the south continued until 24. Yes, we heard about the ceasefire on October 22, but they were shooting at us. There was no ceasefire. And, you know, soldiers, if you shoot me, I shoot back. October 24, mainly in the area of the city of Suez. Mainly, but not only. I was not there. After the ceasefire, talks were held between Israel and Egypt. The UN forces became the buffer. I remember them, Finnish guys, great guys, a lot of beer, and they were far away from home with all the implications. How effective was it? To the degree that we had only one Egyptian shooting attack every 3 days instead of every day. That was the case. Involvement in the superpowers in the Yom Kippur War. During the war, the superpowers, US and USSR, were involved in both diplomatic activity and contact between them and weapons assistance. The USSR sent weapons to Syria, and the US operated as air train to make up for the IDF losses in airplanes, tanks, and essential ammunition. Yes, I witnessed that. The 73 war lasted from October 6 to October 24. In fact, a small-scale war of attrition followed mainly in the Golan until the spring of 1974. You can never stop the will of Arabs to kill Jews. It's something that must be related to. We lost 2,656 soldiers and 7,251 wounded and 294 POWs. Egypt and Syria combined lost around 20,000 soldiers, 35,000 wounded, and 8,811 POWs. But when we speak about the end of this war, it doesn't mean that, okay, after this war, we had some peaceful years. No. And all these occurrences of all these terrorist attacks on Israel in everywhere led to the next war. The next war. 1982, the First Lebanon War. We call it here the Galilee Peace War. June 6, 1982 to September 29, 1982. Well, it began in June 6, after a long period in which the residents of the north were subjected to incessant shelling and shooting by terrorist organizations in Lebanon, and this is before Hezbollah. Following the assassination of Israel ambassador to the United Kingdom, Shlomo Argov, on June 3rd, the Israeli government made a decision to take action to remove terrorist organizations from Lebanon and remove the threat posed to the residents of the north. One of them was me. During the war, it was decided to expand the targets and take over the Beirut area and the entire area of operation up to Beirut-Damascus Road. I was there. During the war, the IDF forces also fought heavy battles with the Syrian army forces. September 29, 1982, marked the IDF withdrawal from Beirut and official end of Operation Peaceful Galilee. But there started the next problem, the presence of IDF forces in Lebanon. From October 82 to September 83, Israel stayed in Lebanon until the withdrawal from the Shuf Mountains. From September 83 to June 85, Israel went a bit south to the south and stayed in Lebanon on what we call the Awali line. Awali is a small river in Lebanon. From June 85 to May 2000, Israel stayed in the security zone and fought during this period until Israel unilateral withdrawal to the international border on May 24, 2000 under Ehud Barak, Prime Minister Ehud Barak. During this period, the campaign was conducted in the security zone. This stay costed the lives of almost 1,000 IDF soldiers. In addition to the loss during the war, which was Israel lost 655 dead, 4 missing in action, and 8 prisoners of war. Syria, Lebanon, PLO combined, 1,800 dead, 1,200 Syrians, 1,000 to 2,400 PLO. Most of the rest are civilians. And 6,000 prisoners of war. And even after this war and the withdrawal of Israel completely out of Lebanon, now it was already that the Hezbollah, and they never stopped threatening and shelling the north, Hula Valley, my hometown, and other places. They never stopped. There is it's not only that they wish to spill Jewish blood, not only, it's much more, it's as if their life is dependent on spilling Jewish blood. The second Lebanese war, which lasted from July to August 2006. Well, I lived in Haifa when this started. The war started, Israel started the war because the Hezbollah kidnapped 2 soldiers and opened a heavy bombardment on Israeli settlements and army posts. And the IDF broke in Lebanon to try to eliminate Hezbollah. Well, I don't think this target was achieved, this goal was achieved. It's very hard to eliminate a terrorists, because they mingle with the local population, and if you want, it's very hard to isolate them. Very hard. And I know it's war, and I know in war we have different rules, but still we are a Jewish army, and I did it myself, and we really try not to harm civilians. And this attitude causes a great risk to us. But Hezbollah and Hamas, and you know them, use this weakness, of this moral weakness of us, of us as Jews, of Jews. They use it. You see it now in Gaza. They yell and yell, you kill civilians. But they use civilians as human shields, including hostages. And when this war stopped or ended, there was no feeling of joy that the war is off. We couldn't be happy. Yes, soldiers are coming back home, it's okay. But as we know, the Middle East, after decades of wars, or against regular armies or against terrorists, all have two things in common. One, they are Muslims. Two, they just want us not to be here, no matter how. And when this war of 2006 ended, no one in Israel had any illusions that this was the last war. No. We knew it's not. Anyway, in this war, Israel lost 44 civilians, 121 soldiers, wounded 2,000 civilians, and 628 soldiers. Lebanon lost from 350 to 940 civilians, 43 soldiers. Hezbollah lost between 500 to 700 men, and 81 men of the Revolutionary Guard of Iran and other terrorist groups. Whenever they have a chance to fight us, they come from all over the world, and especially the Middle East. The wounded on the, let's say, Muslim side, 2,500 civilians, 100 Lebanese army men, 1,000 Hezbollah men, 21 Hezbollah men were prisoners of war. Refugees, here we go again, 900,000 Lebanese civilians. And think, who do you think they blame? Us. Okay, and I just, the war now is running for 7 months. It's the second longest war in Israel. 7 months is very long. Only the independence war was longer, a year and a half, in different conditions. And somehow, during the War of Independence, America embargoed us, the US embargoed us. We couldn't buy. We did with the Jewish ways, but we couldn't formally buy weapons in the United States. And most of Europe, the European countries, refused to sell us weapons. just like Mr. Biden is doing now. What is the problem? Killing civilians in Gaza? Nobody in Israel likes it. We don't like it. But after the October 7, well, the rules must be changed. We cannot take any more events like this one. 700 civilians, 800 soldiers. No, we cannot take these numbers anymore. And you know, in the Muslim world, there are the Sunni Muslims, which are the majority, and the Shiite Muslims, which are the minority. They don't like each other, to say the least. They don't like each other for 1,300 years. They don't like each other, or let's say they like each other so much that they kill each other for just like this. For 1,300 years. But when it comes to Jews, they combine forces. We just read what, may he rest in peace, Hafiz Assad, the former president of Syria, what he said. I will help the PLO, I will finance them, and we need to mobilize our troops against Israel. What for? What did we do to them? We are just here trying to have peaceful life. That's it. And we still reach our hand to each and every person in the Middle East. My neighbor's here, half a mile. It's an Arab Muslim town, Sakhnin. You know how many days each year we are warned not to get in this city, in this town, but they can come here whenever they want to. Why? Will the next war end this problem? No. Because as long as there are Jews here, they will do whatever they can. They, the Arabs, will do whatever they can to push us out. And if they cannot push us out alive, they will kill us. They will do us a favor and kill us. So we will not have to swim to Europe. Don't make no mistakes. Whatever they claim is either lie or bluff. That's it. Whenever they have a suggestion, an offer, let's go sit on the table and see what we can do together. We will give some, you will give some. We will try to have some peaceful life here in this area. They don't want to. And if you call what we have with Egypt and Jordan peace, what peace are we talking about? Is it a real peace or a contemporary peace which matches the conditions of the Arab states at the moment? I'm sorry. The history of Israel from 48 till today shows that we cannot trust them. That's it. We cannot trust them. We can only when they put down the weapon. So guys, as Jews, we have no choice but to cling to life as we understand life. Life is what you do for yourself and what you let others do and we intend to do it. We are here to stay no matter what. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it.